Growing crisis in the Middle East. Tonight, the United States prepares for retaliation after those strikes on 3 Iranian nuclear facilities.
Today, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth provided new details on what defense officials call Operation Midnight Hammer, carried out with a fleet of B-2 bombers. So-called bunker buster bombs used to penetrate the Fordo nuclear site deep beneath a mountain. Satellite images that you're looking at right here show the damage left behind, though the extent of the damage is still unclear.
Also today, Iran accused the United States of trying to destroy diplomacy, and President Trump suggested regime change could be possible in Iran. So many questions, so many angles to cover tonight.
Eyewitness News reporter Anthony Johnson has reaction from members of Congress critical of Mr. Trump's actions.
ABC's Marcus Moore spoke to us from Tel Aviv about the fear across Israel.
And Kimberly Richardson was with protesters here in New York, where there are concerns about possible lone wolf attacks.
But our coverage begins with Eyewitness News reporter NJ Burkett here in the studio with us with more on the operation and the fallout as well. NJ.
Right, Joe, yes, Iran is vowing to retaliate, but when, where, and how? Tonight, the administration insists it was a strategic military success. But there are questions about how much of Iran's nuclear program was destroyed and whether any of it survived.
The satellite images show gaping holes in the earth above Iran's top-secret nuclear sites. What they do not show is the extent of the damage deep underground. Last night, President Trump insisted the regime's entire nuclear weapons infrastructure was in ruins.
Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated.
But U.S. military commanders are more cautious tonight, concerned that these vehicles may have moved nuclear material in the days before the strike. And the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff suggested the sites were severely damaged, but not necessarily destroyed.
And it would be way too early for me to comment on what may or may not still be there.
Vice President J.D. Vance told ABC's John Carl it doesn't matter.
What was severely damaged versus obliterated, I'm not exactly sure what the difference is. They are much further away from a nuclear program today than they were 24 hours ago. That was the objective of the mission.
The Air Force used 7 B-2 bombers, armed with America's most destructive non-nuclear bombs. 14 were dropped on the 2 most fortified sites. A third was targeted with cruise missiles. The mission went entirely undetected. The Iranians are vowing to retaliate.
Iran reserves all options.
At risk are 40,000 U.S. troops stationed in the region, and Homeland Security now warns of a heightened threat environment in the United States, with the potential for low-level cyber attacks on infrastructure. And if the Iranians declare a holy war, the likelihood of violent extremists in the homeland independently mobilizing to violence would likely increase. ABC News contributor Chris Christie.
I think most Americans are going to say, if in fact this slows or prevents Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, we're for what the president did.
But many in Congress are skeptical tonight, even alarmed.
At best, you are taking a very, very tough gamble in which the House almost always wins.
Iran's capability to strike back is still unclear tonight. Besides risk to Americans abroad or here at home, there are serious concerns about oil supplies and shipping in the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf. Tanya, Joe.
All right, NJ, thank you. Iran certainly does have the capability to strike back within the region, and we saw missiles launched into Israel all day. ABC's Marcus Moore has been in Tel Aviv, where people are on high alert.
Good evening, Joe and Tanya. Tensions are high across the region. People here in Israel have been instructed to stay in their homes unless they are essential workers. Now, we were here in Tel Aviv when the air raid siren sounded this morning. Iran launching a number of missiles towards Israel, at least 20, and the siren sounding over Tel Aviv and other parts of the country as those missiles, most of them were intercepted. Now, officials urged people to seek shelter, and Israel's fire and rescue services said that they received several reports of direct damage to residential buildings in 3 different districts here. Now tonight, the U.S. State Department has been evacuating U.S. diplomats and their families who wish to leave. With Joe and Tanya, no signs that this will end anytime soon.
Marcus, thank you. Back here at home, some members of Congress are questioning the strikes and the use of presidential powers. Anthony Johnson is in the newsroom with that part of our coverage. Anthony.
Yeah, Tanya, congressional leaders expressed surprise following the president's decision to order strikes on 3 nuclear sites in Iran. Some Republicans, praising the move, while some Democrats and at least one Republican in the House questioning the president's authority. After days of tensions in the Republican Party over whether President Trump should strike Iran, GOP leaders now praising the president's order to bomb 3 Iranian nuclear facilities on Saturday. Vice President J.D. Vance saying the U.S. is not at war with Iran, but instead the country's nuclear program. Other top Republicans pledging the strikes would not lead to boots on the ground.
We are not pursuing regime change. We're not trying to put any troops on the ground into Iran.
The chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee warning the United States must be prepared for Iran to retaliate.
President Trump was very clear in his warning last night to Iran that last night will look like child's play if they target Americans. Clearly, President Trump means business. The Ayatollahs understand that now. He was not bluffing. He does not bluff.
Speaker of the House Mike Johnson saying Trump was acting within the presidential authority when he ordered the bombings. But Democrats arguing the president overstepped by not requesting a congressional authorization before the strikes. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries accusing the president of misleading the country, saying he failed to seek congressional authorization for the use of military force and risks American entanglement in a potentially disastrous war in the Middle East.
If you look at the history of our military involvements in the region, they almost never end with the best case scenario.
Other Democrats pointing to President Trump's campaign promise to be a peacemaker. The White House saying Trump has long been clear that Iran cannot obtain a nuclear weapon.
Can this country learn? We keep voting for people for president who say we're not going to get into war, and then they keep getting pushed by the Washington Beltway to get us into this mess.
After days of pressure from his MAGA base not to strike, President Trump not facing much overt criticism from within his party after the operation. But one Republican pushing back. Congressman Thomas Massie of Kentucky posting the strikes are not constitutional. And one local congressman who is a Democrat is supporting the strikes. Congressman Josh Gottheimer of New Jersey issued a statement saying this is not a Republican or Democratic issue. Dealing with the Iranian threat is central to America's national security. Back to you.